Ben, you excited to be back as Batman in the Flash?
No.
Why are you doing it?
I don't know. Money, power.
So how much money do you think it's going to make at the box office?
Millions.
How much is it going to make if you weren't in it?
Thousands.
You're real high on yourself, man. Honestly, what percentage of Batman fans think you're actually the best Batman?
No, 1%.
Do you realize that the only reason anyone's watching this movie is because Michael Keaton is back?
That son of a bitch.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Nope or Dope Reviews. I'm Steven. I had the pleasure last night of watching The Flash. If you didn't get to check out my out-of-theater reaction from last night, go check it out now. Everyone had a great time. A bunch of DC fans, a bunch of comic book movie fans in general attended a free screening of The Flash. So you know everyone was hyped from the get-go, especially because it was free. So, hey, we can't do any spoilers on this review, and technically I can't even do a full review of The Flash, but I have less than 5,000 subscribers, and I don't care. Just for you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and do this review. Again, I'm not gonna go over any spoilers, and I'm not gonna even hint towards any spoilers, so just gonna be a general overview of what I thought was dope and what I thought was nope, and then I'll give you my overall nope or dope rating at the end. And if you've seen my reaction from last night, you already know what it is. So I had a chance to think about it today while I was working. And you know, the one good thing about it is I don't remember the last DC movie in general that I've actually thought about the following day more than I have with The Flash. So that's going to give you a hint of what I think about the movie. So let's first talk about what was dope, and then we'll talk about what's nope. I'm going to start off with the dopest thing or person in the movie, and honestly, it is Ezra Miller. I know for myself and for a ton of people out there, we don't care for Ezra Miller as a person. He's done bad things. He's been arrested. He broke into people's homes. He's kidnapped people. He's hit people. That's not good. I'm not sure why WB kept him, but maybe they knew they couldn't move on without him and just maybe finish this movie and just move on from him after it. I think that's where they're going, but Ezra Miller is really what makes this movie go. He plays two different versions of Barry, and the movie rides on his performance. A lot of people didn't like him before this performance, honestly. A lot of people wanted someone more like the CW's Flash versus him, and I have always been okay with him as the Flash. I thought he had a quirkiness about him that I appreciated. He's still that type of Barry in this movie, but he has a second Barry, which I'm not going to go into details about how that Barry is, but he does it so well. This version of Barry, I guess I can say this, is more annoying, and that's purposeful. It's purposeful for this movie. It's super hilarious at some points, and it's super frustrating in others, but it's not frustrating enough for me to say that it ruined the movie. I think his performance will make or break the movie for you. If you loved his performance as the two Flashes, the two Barrys, you're going to love this movie and think it's dope. If you don't like the performance, especially the second Flash performance, because I think that's the one that's going to make you decide if you like the movie or not, it's going to make you not like the movie if you don't like it, because this is a Flash movie throughout, and that's what I love about this movie. It's not too much of the cameos. It's not Ben Affleck or Michael Keaton or Sasha Calle overshadowing the Flashes, the two Barrys. It's a Flash movie, so if you wanted to see a Flash movie about time travel with good special effects and a good story, this is the movie for you. And there's a lot of emotional highs and lows in this movie, from super hilarious comedy to heartbreaking sadness. And Ezra Miller just played every single beat of this movie to almost perfection. I know a lot of you came to see Michael Keaton, and so did I. This is the same shirt I wore last night. I haven't changed or showered. When I was 8 years old, that was the first superhero movie that I ever seen in the theater. The crowd was going nuts, especially when the Batwing went up in front of the moon like a silhouette. And you saw that in this movie, and people went crazy again, even though they've seen it in the trailer. Michael Keaton is who you expected he would be. He's an awesome actor. He's great in everything he does. And this is the Michael Keaton we knew from Batman '89. Yes, the Bruce Wayne in this movie is slightly different Bruce Wayne, especially right when you see him from the get-go. But man, the action scene, one action scene in particular, is probably the best action scene I've ever seen from Michael Keaton's Batman. And give it up to the choreographer, to Andy Muschietti for that, because the crowd was going crazy. I love Michael Keaton just as much as the next guy, but there was a guy next to me fangirling, screaming at the top of his lungs right in my ear. But I love going to the theater when everyone's going crazy. I really do. Another outstanding performance in this movie comes from Sasha Calle. I was definitely concerned about her portrayal of Supergirl coming into this movie, but the second you see her on screen, honestly, she commands the screen like no other. I know a lot of you wanted to see Henry Cavill in this movie, and sure, yeah, I think he would have been okay in this movie, but honestly, it worked out just fine. I'm not going to go into details, but they do explain Henry Cavill's Superman, or what happened to Henry Cavill's Superman in this movie. But Sasha Calle was powerful. Again, she was super emotional when she needed to be. Every frame of her in this movie was just great. Her performance, action-wise, again, big thanks to the choreographers in this movie. She did a great job for a first performance in a superhero movie. Honestly, James Gunn, I hope, if you haven't already decided to keep her as Supergirl, consider her as a Supergirl for your universe. And I got to give it up to Andy Muschietti in this movie. What was funny in this movie is at the beginning of this showing, since it's an early fan press screening, he said that this movie would not be the final cut of what everyone's going to see on June 16th. So that was kind of cool. He was there with his sister, I believe, who's co-producing the movie. But Andy Muschietti, great job with this movie. This is the best I've seen Andy Muschietti, and to be fair, I've only seen him direct the 2 It movies. You know, he elevated the It movies to another level, more so than the TV miniseries, and he elevated The Flash and a lot of the action sequences in this movie to the next level. Not giving away spoilers, but just what you've seen from the trailer, that scene of Batfleck weaving in and out of traffic, you know, flying through the air, the ability to move the camera and shape it in different angles is something I've never seen, honestly, in some of these Batman movies that we've seen in the past. There was a lot of creative angles that I was like, man, sure, it looks like CGI, but it doesn't matter. It was done so well that it didn't even matter. It was a different look from Batfleck that we've seen before, and I appreciated that. When it came to the 2 Barrys, I'll talk about special effects a little bit later. This is the best I've seen when it comes to putting 2 of the same actors acting as the same person together on screen. It was very seamless at some points. At some points it wasn't. But just the way he shifted the cameras, he did a lot of work with moving cameras in scenes involving both Barrys. I think that's obviously to help with the special effects, but it worked well for the scene in general. So if that was just a normal random other person he was talking to, it still worked for the scene. But it even worked better when Barry was talking to Barry. So great job, Andy. One thing that did work for me, and I already can tell that it's not going to work for everyone just from the comments from my reaction last night, was the comedy. I don't know why so many people feel like they can't have comedy in their comic book movies. I get if it's over the top, and warning for those who don't really like comedy in their comic book movies, if you think Marvel's bad at comedy or it's a little too much, wait till you see this movie, because it is filled with comedy throughout. Someone in the comments said they were told maybe 90% of the movie. I wouldn't say 90%, maybe 85%. A lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, there's some really high hilarious moments, and there's some that just don't hit the mark. It's a little cringeworthy, but I rather have fun in the movies than have a dull movie where all the jokes fall flat. And part of it too is, again, not going to go into details of the other Flash, but that's who that Flash is. That's what makes him who he is. Makes him, again, super hilarious or super annoying. There is a running joke of my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future, and it goes on a little bit too long for me. And for old heads like me, when you first heard it, made us feel good, made us smile. And you heard it again. Yes, that's funny. And it drags out a little bit. You're like, all right, time to move on. We get it. This is a very similar to the Back to the Future movies. And a lot of it is. And that's another one of my favorite things about this movie. It is one of the best time travel movies out there. It's very similar to Back to the Future in tone. It's about family. It's about fate. It's about acceptance. And there's a lot of, again, hilarious moments when it comes to time travel. There's a lot of physical comedy in this movie. Very similar to Back to the Future. Back to the Future did a little bit better with it not being comedy completely throughout the movie. This one has a lot more. But for me, again, I enjoyed that part of it. What's great about the time travel in this movie is that it was explained very well by a particular character in a very simple way. It was super quick in one scene, and you could pretty much understand it right away. I know a lot of movies, even Endgame, Avengers, it's kind of confusing with all the branch timelines, how those timelines get affected, even Back to the Future. Back to the Future makes the most sense to me. For some people, it doesn't. But this is a very simple explanation of time travel. It's going to be definitely appreciated by you guys. This feels like more of the Multiverse of Madness than the actual Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I know for a lot of people, even myself, you felt like it was going to be a little bit bigger. This movie doesn't delve into a bigger multiverse per se, but I think it worked a little bit better. All right, let's talk about what's nope in this movie. And when I say nope, doesn't mean it's completely horrible or completely worthless. It just wasn't up to par with what made this movie amazing. And I'm going to start out with the villains in this movie. And for the longest time, a lot of people said Marvel Studios had a villain problem. And to some extent, fine, I can agree on that. They focus more on the heroes, right? But recently with Marvel Studios, I think there's been a lot of great villains to come across the screen recently. For DC, same. I think there is also a villain problem. And in this movie, there is. Michael Shannon is great as Zod. We saw him in Man of Steel, right? He was great there. In this movie, he's just an afterthought. This movie isn't about the villains. Faora, just forget about her. She's completely worthless, useless. I don't know if it's the cut I saw. There just wasn't much with her and even Zod. But again, I don't think this movie is about the villains. They had to put them in there because, you know, they're going to another multiverse or they're going through the multiverse. This is what happened in Man of Steel, but in a different way. I'm okay that I didn't see a lot of Zod and Faora. So for the purposes of this review, so I can have something in the nope section, so this looks like a legit review, I'm putting the villains in it. They just weren't great or even needed. I'm going to talk about special effects. And to be fair and to be transparent, it might not be an issue when this comes out officially on June 16th. I know special effects artists work their tails off to make these amazing movies. And I saw a cut where the special effects weren't finished. I believe most of it was. It's really glaring in some of the scenes, especially in that initial scene with the microwave that I talked about earlier. But it feels like some of the shots were complete and it just didn't look that great. I know a lot of people talked about the kid in Thor Love and Thunder with his head sticking out. There's a scene in this movie, actually a couple scenes with a head sticking out that look very reminiscent. So to be fair to this review, to be honest and transparent, yeah, I think the special effects need some work in that sense. I know I'm putting in a note column, but the effects with the two berries, honestly, that might have been the best version of that type of scene that I've seen in any movie that I can recall recently. That's hard to put two of the same actors acting towards nothing and make it look like they're right there. Yes, there was a couple points where it was glaring that was special effects, that it was maybe a deep fake or whatever. I don't know how they do it. They're amazing. But honestly, that is one of the best aspects of the special effects that I've seen recently in movies. So maybe it's unfair to put this in the nope column, whatever. That portion of it, throw it to the dope column. There is a part in the special effects that I can't really go over much. And I don't know if this was intentional. And it's every time you see Barry go back in time with the Speed Force, In some aspects, I feel like that was intentional to look because it's consistent throughout. Every time you see the Speed Force or they're going back in time, what surrounds Barry, and near the end you see it in full effect for an important reason. And I don't know if, again, if that was the final cut of it. If it is, I didn't like the look of it. I do understand it too, because right, you're trying to make it look different than the real world. So for those of you who have seen it, or when you see it on June 16th, you'll know what I'm talking about. So when he goes through time, the Speed Force, everything that surrounds him when it comes to people, I'm trying to be subtle here, I don't know if that was intentional or not. And if it is, it's just not the best look. Finally, the last thing, this is super nitpicky. I just wanted to have some list on the nope section. And it came down to the music and the score. Anytime you heard Keaton's Batman score, it was perfect. But the other stuff was just super forgettable. They used a lot of songs similar to how James Gunn would use some of his songs in Guardians, maybe to not that extent. But he used some of these songs, you know, that you heard on the radio back in the day, and it just didn't work for me. The score didn't really do it for me. So, little minor gripe, but nice to have a better score, and it just wasn't good. Although the villains weren't great, the score wasn't great, the VFX need work, and the emotional beats didn't quite hit me as hard as some of the crying folks behind me. This movie is dope and is a celebration of the DC universe. Yes, there was a lot of bumps, bruises, stumbles with the DCEU. I feel like that's the past. I know Aquaman's coming up, but I feel like this is the start of the DC universe. We didn't get to see post-credits. I feel like they're probably going to have something that ties into James Gunn's universe. It has to be. This is a good standalone movie, great standalone movie on its own. I don't think James Gunn is going to not attempt to put something to reference his future DC universe, and I hope he does it. By the time you're seeing this review, maybe you've already seen it, and we can embrace the future of the DCU. I'm excited to see it. I hope you guys are too. If you're new to the channel, check out our other reactions, reviews. Hit that like button for us, it helps. Consider subscribing. We'll check you out later.